No, Detroit isn't the Brickyard. With all due respect to Indianapolis, this is IndyCar's, any car's, real homecoming. It's racing's backyard. A city that wasn't built by assembly lines, it built the assembly lines. And for there to be cars, their first had to be this place. Out here, on this island, with this backdrop, is a home game for anyone who has ever owned, worked on, or raced an automobile. A weekend so important, it takes 2 races to settle it all.
Great job!
1 year ago, Penske Racing took 2 wins in 2 days. Can anyone outrun the captain on the streets of this, his hometown? If you want to, you'd best forget the bright lights, the fancy parties, the jugs of milk. Instead, grab a wrench and get to work. Welcome to Detroit.
The follow-up to the spectacular Indy 500 has been a wet and wild weekend in the Motor City for the drivers and teams of the Verizon IndyCar Series. We welcome you live to the Raceway at Belle Isle Park in Detroit for the second of the dual in Detroit races. As the cars and drivers come to the grid, conditions are rapidly improving from what they've been for the past 24 hours, but the air of tension and mystery over what conditions will be and their impact on today's race remain pretty high. Why so tense? Well, a look at what happened yesterday will explain much. Rain showers reached the speedway just before green flag time, which led to a number of incidents, including this one that claimed fan favorites Tony Kanaan and Graham Rahal, among others. This Rahal's view as he piles into Kanaan in the melee. It also set off a strategy play. With the track drying, Marco Andretti bolted to pit road for slick tires before others. That got him the lead when he later extended it as the track continued to dry and others hit the pit lane looking for those slick tires. Andretti opened up a huge gap along with his teammate Carlos Munoz. Then when Andretti had to pit for fuel, Munoz was able to run longer on slick tires before pitting for rain tires. That gave Munoz an insurmountable advantage when lightning threatened the area and officials were forced to stop the race short of its full distance. So the 23-year-old Colombian Carlos Munoz begins today's race fresh off his first IndyCar Series win. He's standing by with Rick DeBrule.
Yeah, we're down here on the grid where it's a little cold, a little windy, and just a little bit wet. Now, yesterday when we were talking to Carlos after the race, you were a little disappointed because you wanted to win one in a full-out sprint, all green. Having slept on it, probably not celebrated a lot. Do you feel a little better about that win today?
Yeah, you know, the thing is I had to shift my mind to today, you know. It's another race, so if we do bad now, for sure the win is won't count for anything. So we have to do good. I think, you know, if we qualify more or less today, we're feeling good in the rain. It's a long race, you know. It seems like it's rain right now, but it's going to be ending drying up. You know, this track dry up pretty quickly, but today with this cold, let's see how the tires are when you put the dry in really tricky conditions.
All right, Carlos Munoz and his team proved that they can win on strategy. They did that yesterday. They may need to do that again today, Alan.
All right, Rick, thanks. And hello from Detroit. Alan Bestwick with the 98 Indy 500 winner Eddie Cheever and IndyCar winning driver Scott Goodyear. That first big win for Munoz. What's it do for him today?
That first win is such a big confidence builder. Nothing is sweeter than going to bed knowing that you beat everybody. But he woke up this morning, like he said, knowing that he has to do it again today. But today is a little bit different. He's got this big bullseye in his back. You're the guy that won yesterday, so he's the first one they have to beat today, Scott.
And, you know, this changing conditions that we're having here, Alan, is changing from whatever we had yesterday. Today, we're probably going to be starting in the wet and possibly going to dry if the weather forecast we're following is correct. And you see some of the things that went on this morning when the guys were out there doing their warm-up. Cars are going sideways, sliding around. We expect to see that at the beginning of today's event. But the strategy will be is when do you put those dry tires on? Because as you can see around here, you cannot make a mistake. Walls loom on both sides, and it's very difficult to be perfect around here. The guy that wins is going to get the strategy right and make no mistakes.
Now, that highlight of James Jakes crashing there, that was in what was intended to be the qualifying session for today. But the downpour was so heavy, officials had to scrap it and line up the field for this race by entrant points. That puts Juan Pablo Montoya on pole position. He'll lead this field to the green flag just 7 days after his big win at Indianapolis.
The 99.20 of the Indy 500 is underway.
Juan Pablo Montoya has some sort of a problem. Contact has ripped that fender guard off his right rear tire.
Oh, he slides past his marks.
Montoya was last. Look where he's at now. He's second. Here's Montoya with a full run on Will Power for the race lead. He's cleared it. Here they come to the checkered flag. And the winner of the Indianapolis 500 is Juan Pablo Montoya.
What a sensational final 15 laps in the Indianapolis 500, followed by a whirlwind week for race winner Juan Pablo Montoya. He left the racetrack, went live on Good Morning America, rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, and then began crisscrossing the country for talk shows and personal appearances prior to coming here Thursday for a media luncheon. And today, by virtue of point standings and rain, he will start on the pole for this round 2 of the Chevy Duel at Detroit. Now, if you talk to Juan Pablo Montoya, he says, you know what? I feel very confident that I can drive this thing in the rain. I think I'm one of the best guys here in wet conditions, so don't be surprised if Montoya wins an IndyCar race for the second Sunday in a row. Let's go to Jan Bikas.
And Doc, right alongside starting today will be Will Power. Now, Will knows he has the speed. Obviously, he was on the pole position for race number 1, but he also knows we can't take the kind of risk, the same sort of risk that we saw for the tire selection and strategy, let's say for a Marco Andretti or a Carlos Munoz. We can't do that. We have to think and keep the bigger picture in mind, the championship perspective. Don't get sucked into that kind of risk-taking. Let's make sure today we bring home as many championship points as we can. Alan?
So another fascinating day ahead. Thanks, Jan, with weather conditions affecting strategy, possibly affecting the outcome of the race. A wet start coming up in Detroit. Belle Isle Park in the Detroit River between Windsor, Ontario to your left and downtown Detroit on your right. The Raceway at Belle Isle Park ready to host the second of the Duel in Detroit events for the Verizon IndyCar Series. So a race yesterday, then a long night last night, and an early morning this morning for teams like the KV Racing team with Sebastian Bourdais' car on the left and Stefano Coletti's car on the right. Strip them all the way down, fix them all the way back up, and get them to the grid to go racing today here in Detroit. So this 14-turn circuit that the drivers will face, let's hear about it from the driver's perspective.
We've got turn 1 and 2, which are very, very quick for a street circuit.
Right as you get over that creek, the front falls away and you think you're going to hit the exit wall. That's enough excitement for one lap, but we just started.
Leading down into 3, which is a really good passing zone. Turn 3, 4, 5 takes you a good rhythm on the street circuit. You know, you're going as hard as you can.
The best place to pass around Detroit is off of the backstretch. People can sneak their car inside there and really challenge the brake zone, and if you're daring enough, you can get inside people.
It's so challenging. The concrete section around the fountain and that whole area, if you make a mistake by half a foot, you're going to be in the wall.
The last corner, you throw yourself in, you don't know if you're going to exit the corner. You have to have a lot of confidence.
And a look at turn 3, where the big rush on the first lap sometimes leads to contact and controversy. Tires, strategy, weather conditions, big factors for this race. Here's Jan Bikas.
And of course, Alan, those were big factors in race number 1, rain tire versus slick tire. When do you make the change? Today is considered a wet start, so therefore these wet weather tires will be on all the cars to start. And what the drivers need to do right away, preserve the edges. Don't lean on them too much. These sharp edges right here make all the difference in the rain. If it starts to dry, yes, you can work on this more and wear them down. But when is a driver's perspective, do you go to the slicks? The rule of thumb, if it looks like the surface is damp, you can run these. But anytime it's shiny, do not venture on slicks. It's like driving on ice. Doc?
Well, who wins a race today, Jan? It's pretty simple. As you mentioned, the team that can go from these wet tires to these slick tires, which are 10 seconds a lap faster, the team that goes there first. Now, how do you know when to go? Who makes that call? Well, how about for Elio Castro-Evans, this guy right here, team strategist and team owner Roger Penske. He is a strategist. He's got to be an engineer, but today he's got to be a weatherman. He will look at the weather conditions. He will look at the racetrack. He will talk to his driver, Elio Castro-Evans, at this point and say, Elio, I think we got to go now. If we're the first ones to go to slicks, we will win this race. And by the way, how do you argue with the captain? He's won 16 Indianapolis 500s. Rick?
Well, Graham Rahal is one Honda driver who's probably happy that qualifying got rained out this morning. That's because when the field was set on entrance points, he's now in the 5th starting position. What he really wants to do is put yesterday out of his mind. That's because he was caught up in an early accident, ended up finishing last. Now, starting 5th means he won't have to battle his way through the pack, meaning less chance for havoc and a lot easier to get his way up to the front. And that's where he wants to be. Alan?
All right, Rick, thanks. So the field lined up. You see the drivers buckled in. We're ready to go in the shadow of downtown Detroit with the world headquarters of General Motors, one of the biggest buildings you could see from the circuit. The chief executive officer of GM on hand, cheering on her Chevy drivers, as well as to give the command to start engines.
Race fans, are you ready for those most famous words in motorsports? Please welcome CEO of General Motors, Mary Barra, to give the command.
Drivers, start your engines!
Ready to race in the Motor City. Who takes home the trophy in the second half of the Doolin Detroit doubleheader? The green flag is next. Field on the track halfway through the first of 2 pace laps before the green flag in the Doolin Detroit race number 2. The raceway at Belle Isle Park in Detroit, Michigan, with skies beginning to clear. And it should be a really interesting factor in the opening laps. So your starting lineup across the top of the screen. Remember, qualifying rained out by a downpour this morning, so field lined up by entrant points. They don't quite match the driver points, particularly when we get to row 5. You'll see Connor Daly starting in the 10th position, even though it's just his 3rd race of the year. He's subbing for James Hinchcliffe aboard the 5 machine as James continues his recovery, and we certainly wish him well. Our broadcast today available in Spanish by activating your SAP button, presented by ESPN Deportes. So the 14-turn circuit measures just under 2.4 miles, 70 laps the distance today, or 2 hours, whichever comes first. You see the fuel window, and you see the weather. 52 degrees right now. Incredibly, significantly cooler than it was the last couple of days here.
And the track, as you can see, is now starting to dry. But the thing I looked at that last graphic is the wind. The wind is going to help dry this track very quickly. And as soon as the cars start to go around the track and circulate, you'll see that dry line form very quickly, Eddie, as you and I talked about. The big question will be for the drivers relating information back to the teams, and the teams looking at the weather and deciding when will we go to those very quick dry tires.
For everybody looking at the screen, you will see a dry patch start to develop on the line where the cars are at on the track. And the first driver that comes in might do a little bit too early, but he will gain as the race goes on if it continues to not rain.
Now, maybe the trickiest moment of the day is coming up in seconds. This will be a double file start on the slippery track. The drivers face very quickly after they begin accelerating a high-speed right-hander and then a quick right-left complex before they scream down a long straightaway to a heavy braking zone. It will be a spectacular sight to watch.
And we've seen it, and we say this all the time. You cannot win the race in the first turn, the first lap, but you certainly can lose it. We saw that yesterday, and a lot of team owners yesterday were talking also. Some of these younger guys need to learn patience and get through the race and let the race fold out to them. So today it's going to be interesting. Not only do we get through turns 1 and 2, Eddie, but also turns 3.
What was ironic, the driver that started the accident yesterday got away with it. Nothing happened to him, and 4 other drivers were sitting there rather irritated.
Now, just a quick thing to sneak in. You see where we are at Belle Isle Park, the end of the rain just about here, though that one more band that may nip us. So the decision of when to switch from the wet tires to the slicks, and if you need to change back, is going to weigh heavily on these drivers and their strategists on the pit lane. So here they come. Doubling up now for the start in the second round of the Doolin Detroit. Montoya, red and white 2. To your left is the pole sitter with Will Power to his outside as they come to the front and begin to accelerate. Montoya into turn 1. Here's that big charge to turn 3. Newgarden slides through Dixon into third.
Well, it looks like Will Power and Montoya have just carried on their argument that they had at the Indy 500 that had Montoya in the lead. And I'm sure Power has been thinking about finishing second to Montoya the whole time since the race has ended.
Even in the wet, when we see them go down here into turn 7 off the backstretch up to 165 miles an hour, and this is where you can make some great moves. We see Munoz making a move. He's doing a great job.
Fresh from his yesterday's win.
Munoz there in the 26th, the first of the green and black cars. Sebastian Bourdais, the next one. Marco Andretti separates them.
You can see dry patches on the track. I think you'll be seeing cars coming in within the next 5 laps.
Juan Pablo Montoya carrying our Firestone on board today. James Jakes on pit road early. Rick?
We were talking about strategies and going off strategy. That's exactly what he's going to do. Now, it's important to point out, James Jakes had a problem in the early session, hit the wall during that canceled rain qualifying session. As a result, they had to do some work to put him back on track. But once again, he's already going on a different strategy.
Oh, that's really early. We'll be keeping an eye on his time to see how much faster or slower he is, the cars that have rains on, but it looks really damp out there still right now.
So the challenge for him, Marco Andretti said this yesterday after they went for the slicks early. Marco had to keep it off the wall for it to work, and he managed to do it. That's the challenge for Jakes now. Sebastian Bourdais to the inside of Graham Rahal. Bourdais in the 11 moves up.
This is such a difficult complex in the back section here. She's right along now with Graham Rahal and the Steak and Shake on board. The thing that he's battling with is grip and then looseness. And you're turning in, you can see he's turning the steering wheel a fair amount. The car's not turning, so you're gingerly waiting for it to come back to you, getting back on the gas, and you're trying not to let that car in front of you get too much space in between you. And to watch now with the Honda telemetry, just look at him working the throttle, the green bar on the left-hand side. And watch the speed. This is in the wet to over 150 miles an hour. Very difficult because you're on the concrete road that these guys are driving on right now. Remember, so we see a battle here for the lead.
And Power is positioning his car as he can on the inside of the straightaway to force Montoya to take the outside line.
Montoya with a bold run.
On your right, on your right.
And a change of lead. Montoya back out front.
And you heard the spotter, Tim Cindric, letting Will Power know that he had someone coming on the inside of him. Now, as a driver, you certainly know that, but you have the option to let the spotter, the strategist who's watching our feed, talk to his driver and let them know what's going on. But Eddie, you know, you can feel the cars around you, and you can sense when you've made a bit of a mistake, and the driver's taking advantage of that.
And what Montoya is doing right now, he passed him. He has to put as much distance as he can between him and Power, because I think he knows that Power is under pressure from Newgarden right now. And the more distance he can put, the safer he is. He doesn't have to defend from Power right now. All he has to worry about is going fast.
When you win the Indianapolis 500, it's a week that is very, very busy with very little time to focus on the next race. In fact, it's been a long time since a driver won Indianapolis and won the follow-up race right after that. It was 15 years ago, as a matter of fact.
Wasn't it a guy called Juan Montoya?
It was, exactly. James Jakes on those slick tires.
Yeah, that was a good tire choice.
Well, not only, I think this might be just a little bit too early for many factors. It's not 75 or 80 degrees. Eddie, you know, the track temperature is very low compared to what we generally race on. It takes a while for these tires to get up to temperature, and it's still moist out there, and you've got all the trees around the circuit putting sap down on it. It's a very slick racetrack.
So just underway in Detroit, Juan Pablo Montoya started on pole, lost the lead as reclaimed the top spot in quickly drying conditions on the speedway.
You got a truck for a reason, remember? So get some Firestone tires and go do truck stuff. 300 million view stuff. Big boy truck stuff. Secret spot stuff. The Firestone Destination AT. Long link, carbon reinforced to conquer any terrain and any truck stuff. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Right now at Pizza Hut, you can get any 2 medium pizzas for $6.99 each. Choose any crust, any sauce, any toppings. So go for it, America. Get any toppings, any crust flavor, anything you want on any 2 medium pizzas for just $6.99 each. Only at Pizza Hut.
The past 2 years have not seen one running back selected in the first round of the draft. That certainly puts a lot of pressure on Melvin Gordon III to justify the selection. I don't think anyone doubts his ability as a runner, but will he be able to become a consistent threat out of the backfield? He has the potential to be a star. Only time will tell.
Speed stick gear for moments that matter.
Before sponsorship logos jockeying for position. Before speeds hit the triple digits. Before checkered flags, victory laps, pit crew, milk baths, and the smell of burning rubber and ethanol became just another day at the office. There was just a dream. Honda is proud to sponsor the IndyCar dreams of future drivers everywhere.
Our Pizza Hut Big Flavor Dipper Pizza is almost 2 feet of pizza.
Whoa.
You're gonna need a bigger car.
Get the new Big Flavor Dipper Pizza with 4 flavorful sauces and a free Pepsi 2-liter with online orders. Just $12.99. Only at Pizza Hut.
Juan Pablo Montoya, the Indy 500 winner, out in front early in the second of the weekend's dual in Detroit races here at the Raceway at Belle Isle Park, downtown Detroit. Next up for the Verizon IndyCar Series, back to the high-speed oval tracks, Texas Motor Speedway next Saturday night for the Firestone 600. See it on CNBC starting at 8 Eastern Time. And here on the ESPN networks, the Toyota NHRA Summer Nationals come up next weekend. Qualifying runs from Englishtown. Saturday, 11 Eastern, ESPN2. Final eliminations Sunday, 9 Eastern, also on ESPN2. Look at the gap that Montoya has put on Will Power. Here's Joseph Newgarden, third. Trouble, Carlos Munoz had been the fastest mover in the early part of the race, and something's gone wrong with the 26 car.
Looks like we lost an engine.
Looks like the right bank.
If you see any fire with it, fire.
Yeah, now he needs to stop well ahead of the curve here. He should have been slowing down there a little bit further before he got to the turn.
Right there, stay right there.
Still running.
Okay, clear behind.
Doesn't look like there's a fire.
So nice of him to actually get off the racing line and to go down that escape road to let the Hamaltro crew do their work.
So that is just a local yellow in turn 3, where drivers are expected to reduce their speed by 15% as they go through. And be mindful of the corner workers there. We stay under green the rest of the course, though.
And Montoya is easily in the lead, and he's making it look so easy.
And you can see, Eddie, some of these sections we're going through right now that are sort of by the edge of the island where the wind is helping drive the racetrack and the cars are going faster. They're creating more downforce, and so they're sucking all the water off the racetrack because of the tunnels underneath the car. So we are starting to see this dry line start to form. It's in the back section where it's still very slippery for everybody to get grip on it. That's what the driver's going to be waiting for, to call back and say, hey, I think it's time.
Marco Andretti yesterday put himself in position to win the race by being the first to make the move to pit road for slicks and opening up a huge gap on everybody else. Looking at Marco's drive from our Mutual of Omaha on board. He's in 8th place right now.
The only problem that Marco ran into yesterday is that he had to come in for fuel 3 laps or 4 laps earlier than Munoz did, and Munoz made such a big jump forward with slicks.
Update on Andretti from Rick.
Well, you nailed it right on the head a little earlier when you were talking about tire temperatures today. We were talking with Marco before the race, and the question as to when he was going to go over and what type of tires he was going to run. And he said he wouldn't have made the same decision today that he made yesterday. Because of the temperature, because it's so cold, he would stay on those tires and not change as early as he did yesterday. That's why he's going to stay on these as long as he can.
All right, Rick, thanks. So again, Marco running in 8th place with Simon Pagenaud and Ryan Hunter-Reay right behind him in 9th and 10th. Big day yesterday for the Andretti Autosport team. 2 of the 3 drivers on the podium. In fact, the top 2 spots were theirs. And by the way, the report we're getting on the Munoz car is that it is that lost water pressure, and you saw he was able to drive the car across the corner into the escape road, so it wasn't a complete engine failure, and it did seem like a lot of liquid running off the back of the car.
Coming out of the right-hand side of the engine.
Our Verizon on board with Simon Pagenaud.
As we mentioned, you can start to see the track's looking pretty dry down here in the front stretch. Now going from turn 1 to turn 2, up over the creek. That little bump that we had, we saw Charlie Kimball yesterday get loose in the wet and hit the wall. Hunter-Reay, you can see in the yellow DHL machine, starting to chase down the 22 of Simon Pagenaud.
Peek inside there from Tony Kanaan. You ride with him. Our NTT data on board.
The car in front that he's chasing is the number 5 of Connor Daly, who's, as we mentioned, subbing for James Hinchcliffe. Connor did a great job yesterday, had moved up, did some great passes, ended up getting in the top 5, but on one of the restarts, he got hit from behind, had to come in and make some changes to the car. Now, so we're on Connor Daly's car. You can see here by the Lucas oil camera just how bumpy this racetrack is. Look at his hands working the steering wheel.
Connor's done a lot of racing in Europe, and obviously they do a lot of running in the wet there, and he's doing a very good job today. He really needs to finish this race.
Update on the 5 from Jan.
Yes, and Connor Daly was very much looking forward to a double race weekend because he says, I have so much to learn in these cars. And he knew with a double race weekend, I don't have much practice time, but I have a race to get up to speed. And then today, he really wanted to cash in. He likes these conditions, just like he talked about. This is the kind of conditions he drove in Europe. And I can update you on that dry line, Scott. It's starting to sprinkle down here on pit road. We've had 2 or 3 teams that have put their tires out. They were going to come in for slicks, and then they said no. They saw the times of James Jakes, and it's starting to sprinkle heavier now. I think they're going to stay on the reins for now.
Talked about earlier that one little line, the tail end on the radar of showers that might come through, and it appears that it's catching up to us now. The question is how long and how hard will it rain before it stops? Juan Pablo Montoya has overtaken James Jakes to put him a lap down and put that gap on Will Power, who's in 2nd place.
And Will Power is starting to go offline on the back straight, trying to keep his tires as cool as he can. At this point, you want to make those tires last long, and you can only do that by going on the wet sections of the track when it's possible. That's what you call car control.
Oh, and look at the wheels. I mean, just close to the ground. You can see how bumpy it is here. We talk about how difficult it is to drive this racetrack in the dry. It just makes it more difficult, certainly when it's wet.
8 of 70 laps completed, working the 9th. Juan Pablo Montoya out in front. We're back to Detroit after this from your ABC station. Running hard on a drying track, though not drying quickly enough. For some, Juan Pablo Montoya leading the duel in Detroit for the Verizon IndyCar Series. Remember earlier on lap 1, we saw James Jakes dive in and take on slick tires. Are they undoing that, Rick?
Indeed, they are. A noble experiment, but just not enough. All through this race, he has been radioing back and forth with his crew, asking what the lap times are for everybody. And it became obvious that he had gained no advantage by switching over to those slick tires.
Not only did he not gain any advantage, he was in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, in the way. So you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, in the yellow car, Sage Karam also going around him. Everybody passing him at that time. He was going 10 seconds a lap slower. And Eddie, you and I just talked during the commercial break. If you were thinking about coming in, or the team was telling you come in, you're a driver. You know you couldn't take slicks on the car. You just wouldn't come in.
You can always act like the radio's not working and stay out.
That goes well until the Monday morning meeting.
Karam is doing a great race. As we just saw, he passed 4 cars in about 300 yards. Jan?
And Alan mentioned this morning that there was meant to be a qualifying session that was aborted. Well, unfortunately, Sage Karam had the fastest time this morning. Had they run both groups, he would have started today on the pole. So I asked him, wow, you must really like the rain. He says, I don't have that much experience, but I just feel comfortable. When I wake up in the morning and I see it's wet, I don't go, oh no, I have to drive in the rain. I think this is going to be a fun challenge, and he's showing he's got some great skill in wet conditions.
So picked up 7 positions since the start, and up into 13th place right now is the youngster from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Sage Karam. Simon Pagenaud leading that group from 9th place on back. The gap from Montoya to Will Power is beginning to shrink, Doc.
Yeah, no surprise that Juan Pablo Montoya was able to pull away to a 4-second, now a 3-second gap because of all his experience in Formula One driving in the rain. Now, when do they make a move? Obviously starting to rain here in turns 1 and 2. Montoya wanted to be careful and not burn the wet tires off. And basically what's happening on pit road in his stand, engineer Brian Campy is here watching and monitoring the lap times on these tires to see how much rubber is being burned away as Montoya is trying to stay on the wettest part of the track. John Boslog, the engineer, talking to Montoya, and Juan said, here, listen guys, I want to make the call. Right now it's wet, but when we go to dries, I want to be the guy who makes the call. Left side of your screen, that's Boslog, and that is Brian Campy there, the engineer, who is watching the lap times for Montoya and telling him, stay on the wet part of the racetrack. And these, by the way, these rain tires will wear, and they will wear significantly if you get much on the dry surface of the track. Although right now it's starting to rain again, so Montoya should be okay.
And that is why he's trying to stop the car from going sideways. Every time you are sliding, you're burning off the rubber. So he's got to be as smooth as he can be and try to make those tires last as long as he can. We're quite a long way away from the first fuel window.
Watching Montoya's telemetry and some of the speeds that they're doing in the wet. Interesting story on Brian Campy, the engineer that Doc was referencing there. Brian was with Penske Racing's NASCAR program, and they had a car that they were going to stop running because of some sponsorship consolidations, and they offered Brian a shot at IndyCar racing. And Montoya has talked about how he felt like the fact that both of them had been running in NASCAR had helped them click more quickly in IndyCar because they had some of the common terminology that's different from one side of the sport to the other. And obviously a huge Indianapolis 500 win last week for that trio of leaders for Team Penske.
When you take a bright engineer and a very talented race car driver and you put them in a place called Penske, good things happen.
Yeah.
See from the helicopter view, some sections we talked about are starting to look a little bit dry, but we're getting now reports of some more rain coming on the backstretch. That's the front section that he's going through right there. That's where I was mentioning we can feel the wind. Our television booth is not far from there, so when I was out just before the race, the wind is coming over, drying the track, but you know, you have to feel comfortable that you can spend more time in a dry area, getting good lap times out of your car, and maybe just give up a couple of turns if it's moist. But if it's any time of danger at all that you could put the car into the wall, that's when you really need to radio in, no matter what the team is saying to you, and say, I can't take dry tires now, I still need a few more laps.
An hour between two concrete walls in the rain, approaching a heavy braking zone. Juan Pablo Montoya at work here in Detroit.
Right now, Verizon is offering unlimited talk and text, plus 10 gigs of shareable data. Yeah, 10 gigantic gigs for $80 a month and $15 per line. More data than ever for more of what you want on the network that's #1 in speed, call, data, and reliability. So you never have to settle. $80 a month for 10 gigs and $15 per line. Stop by or visit us online and save without settling. Only on Verizon.
Mario Andretti, racing legend. I'm Fred Savage, voice of Honda.
So you just want me to read this in there while he's driving? Fast?
Honda lives for racing. Now you can feel the fast. You can win a ride the car like this with a racing legend like Mario Andretti and lead the start of a Verizon IndyCar Series race. It's the fastest seat in sports.
Enter now at shophonda.com.
Appears Buster's been busy.
Yeah, Scott. I was just about to use...
I've got a much better idea, lad. Scott's Easy Seed uses the finest seed, fertilizer and natural mulch that holds water so you can grow grass anywhere. Looking good, lad.
Thanks, Scott. Easy Seed really works. So, how come Haggis is so well behaved?
Because he's a Scotty.
Oh.
Get Scott's Easy Seed. It's guaranteed. Seed your lawn. Seed it.
Hi, I'm Brett Favre. Thinking back to all those years I played in the NFL, I was always perfectly groomed. But since I retired, I've kind of let myself grow. Now I'm thinking, it's time to get my groom back.
When it's time to get your groom back, get it back with MicroTouch Max for precise grooming around ears, nose, eyebrows, neck, and sideburns.
Hey, I'm Brett Favre. I got my groom back with MicroTouch. Now you can too.
Get MicroTouch Max at these fine stores.
Why do you trust Royal Purple Synthetic Oil? Because you expect the absolute peak of performance from yourself, your car, and your motor oil. With Royal Purple protecting your engine, you know you can go one full year between oil changes. So give your car the Royal treatment with Royal Purple. To get special savings on Royal Purple and enter for your chance to win a once-in-a-lifetime Royal Treatment experience with Indy racer Townsend Bell, go to gettheroyaltreatment.com today.
Juan Pablo Montoya leading, Will Power closing. There are the top two here in the duel at Detroit and the raceway at Belle Isle Park, downtown Detroit, on what's becoming again a rainy Sunday afternoon. Thursday night, game one of the NBA Finals. What's going to be a great series. Cleveland and Golden State. Tips at 9 Eastern here on ABC. We start at 8:30 with NBA Countdown. Of course, LeBron in the finals for a 5th straight year, and the Warriors seeking their first title in 40 years. That's 4-0. So Will Power closing in. Look at the intervals shrinking between himself and the leader Montoya. You see the rain has picked up again, and here's where it's going to get tricky. One of the weather apps that I consider to be really highly reliable, that zeroes in on your geographic location and so on, says that the rain is going to stop in about 15 minutes, and then it's going to start again in 35 minutes.
That will be just about when they have to come in for fuel, Alan. A reoccurring theme that we've had here for a while is it's always Montoya and Power, Alan, that are battling each other. If you have to go all the way back to 5th position to find Castroneves, almost 20 seconds behind Montoya, and another 15 seconds to find Pagenaud. These two drivers are battling out for the supreme position as leader inside of that organization, and it is quite a battle.
Another one of the Penske cars driven by Simon Pagenaud, so strong in Indianapolis last week and got tangled up in traffic, broke the front wing. A look from the Pagenaud car with a reminder to download the IndyCar 15 mobile app and get live streams from in-car cameras and more from Verizon.
Interesting to me, you've got Montoya and Power of Team Penske that are out there and putting down some good laps and really running strong. Castroneves, you mentioned Eddie, is in 5th, and Simon Pagenaud is back in 9th. So we're looking at Simon right now. Are those guys maybe running a bit of a different fuel strategy, trying to stretch this out just a little bit longer?
No, I don't think it's fuel. I think it's just not being comfortable driving their car around this track in the wet. Montoya and Power just seem to have that extra gear.
Sorry, Eddie, we are beginning to see some people drift on and off the pit lane. Luca Filippi was in a lap ago. This past lap, we saw Jack Hawksworth, Tristan Vautier, and Rodolfo Gonzalez all on and off the pit lane. You mentioned Castroneves. There is Elio in the 3 car back in 5th place.
The Chevys have the top 6 positions, and the best Honda for the moment is Ray Hall back in 7th, and Andretti is right behind him.
So there are the guys that just came off the pit lane. 19, 18, 41. Vautier, Gonzalez, and Hawksworth. And there you mentioned Graham Rahal. Big weekend in Detroit. Verizon IndyCar Series paid double points for the Indianapolis 500 toward the championship. And then with the 2 races here, essentially another double point weekend. If you have trouble 2 weeks in a row, it can set you back well in the championship. Rahal had a strong race last week at Indy. The heartbreak yesterday. Today is a must for his championship hopes as you ride with him in our Honda telemetry.
See, he's just tiptoeing around some of those turns. It's so difficult. And these guys right now are trying not to take the tires off the car. When the car slides like that, as you saw with Marco Andretti, that's when you start to peel those square blocks off the tires that Jan Bikas was talking about. And when you do that, Eddie, you know that you just start to lose grip going into the turn, mid-corner grip, and then trying to get the acceleration out. And you're trying to thread the needle right now, trying to find the most driest part of the racetrack to get the most grip. Jan?
And you're talking about, Alan mentioned specifically the group of cars that came in early for pit stops. What you're looking at here is that you get stuck behind a car like we're watching Connor Daly, for example. When you get in a situation and you're still within a pit window, you can come in and make a change to the car early on. You still could probably make this race in one more stop, especially with some yellow. So those that were having handling issues, come in, get another set of rain tires. I can tell you it's raining heavily down here on pit road. No thought whatsoever of slicks, but come in early, make a change, and hope you can pick up some ground if your car's not doing what you'd like.
Now, to be in third position in this group is the worst place because you're getting all that mist. The driver that has the advantage here is Marco Andretti.
Juan Pablo Montoya, the race leader.
Are your tires hanging on okay? Yeah, their wheels are going off a little, but it's not bad.
Didn't sound very flustered, did he?
Referencing what Scott was saying before about those tires. And now more pit action. Rick?
Takuma Sato just brought his car, and he was complaining he had no grip. Now the question is that mechanical grip, or is that because the track is so slick? They came in, they moved him out. They did have a problem with the right rear. Doc?
And you see him leaving inside, just to the outside of Tony Kanaan. They just miss each other exiting in turn 1. Kanaan putting 4 more rain tires back on his car, making his first of what may be 3 stops today.
Of course, Kanaan involved in that big crash, had the bad finish yesterday, and his team had to make significant repairs to that car to get it back on the track yesterday, and then again to prepare it for today's race. This racing in the rain thing's not easy, even when you got a good car.
Oh, so close, and that's what we were talking about before. Try not to slide the car, because you certainly take the advantage off those tires.
When the car is sliding like that, you have to keep your foot on the throttle.
And get your brain to convince your foot to do that?
It's quite an argument. If you take your foot off the throttle, you will spin like a top.
You see the rain on the lens? A wet track at Detroit with Montoya leading.
Nothing compares to the luster of polished bare metal. Mother's knows metal. We've been polishing the way to a mirror-like shine since 1973. Our exclusive patented metal polishing tools create the most effortless shine around. Together with our legendary metal polishes, they instantly buff away dulling oxidation, restoring brilliance, even in difficult to polish areas. Polish better, smarter, and faster with Mother's Powerball, Powerball Mini, and Power Cone.
AutoNation's race to our 10 million sale is on. Almost there. Got it. 10 million.
It's AutoNation's Race to 10 Million sales event. We're racing to sell our 10 millionth vehicle. Millions have saved. Now you can too. Buy or lease. Your choice. $199 per month at every AutoNation store coast to coast.
When AutoNation races to 10 million,
You win.
Searching for a great used car? Can you help? Start with the millions of used cars for sale at the new Carfax.com.
Show me cars with no accidents. Show me no accidents and 1 owner. Show me no accident, 1 owner cars with service records. That's awesome.
That's the power of Carfax. Find the cars you want, avoid the ones you don't. Plus, you get a free Carfax report with every listing. Start your used car search at Carfax.com.
Every day, small businesses are using Constant Contact email to grow their business. they're getting customers coming back, spreading the word, and getting new customers through the door. See how Constant Contact email and our free award-winning coaches can help your business do more business. Start your free trial at ConstantContact.com.
Harper, time to get out of those clothes.
I'm still learning the rules.
Who are you talking to?
A friend. The Whispers premieres tomorrow, 10, 9 Central on ABC.
You saw Will Power pit from second. Montoya, the leaders, caught traffic, so here he heads to the pit lane for his first stop of the race. He heads to Dr. Jerry Punch.
Yeah, you mentioned race leader Juan Pablo Montoya, and they will stay with the wet tires. Obviously, it's still wet conditions, and although they know what you said, Alan, that the weather's going to change in about 15 minutes, it's going to go to dry, then back to wet, trying to be completely flawless. Outside tires going on, inside tires going on, clock ticking away, and he's down in less than 9 seconds, the leader back toward the racetrack. Jan.
And Joseph Newgarden taking the opportunity to get some fresh tires as well. Now, they have changed the tire pressures. They were going to change some front wing, but they changed their mind. That was quick work by the tires. Oh, wow, that was a long time. Let's get to Rick.
Graham Rahal brings the Honda in. Now, the important thing is they have decided not to go off strategy. Some of the other Hondas came in a little bit earlier. They are saying with the same strategy as the leaders, nice clean stop, and he's out.
So Scott Dixon takes over the race lead on the exchange of pit stops for the moment.
And his unique ability to go fast and not use fuel is coming in very handy today. We've heard from Doc in the pits, Scott, that they're using a lot more fuel than they thought they would be with this on and off trying to control these cars. It isn't easy to control a 750 horsepower car around these tight streets of Detroit.
Especially as we talk about being on the concrete, and this is a city street, so there's a crown in the middle of the road, so when you turn from the outside of the turn over the crown and then you fall off on the outside of the track, just like Dixon's doing right there. So the car wants to slide out towards the wall. You need to account for that, and it's going to sound like Dixon's headed in towards the pit lane.
Now you're at a point that a lot of others have pitted. You can't afford to get caught by a full course yellow.
So he better get in as quickly as he can, and he is in the pits.
There's Scott all the way down here.
50-mile-an-hour pit road speed limit today, Doc.
And as you guys mentioned, a lot of fuel being burned by the on and off throttle, and Dixon one of the best at saving fuel, maybe the best right now in the series. So he's one of the last cars to pit, comes in as the leader. It should be routine here. Remember, we had some issues yesterday with one of the teams, Will Power. Tires are on, fuel going in, so no fuel. Great pit stop for Dixon's bunch, less than 8 seconds.
That's the fastest pit stop we have seen today.
And he was also the fastest on his in-lap from going across the timeline into going over the timeline in through the pit lane. So that means he gained about 3 seconds over the other drivers. That was pretty incredible.
When Felipe came in and put his new wet tires on, he was 2 seconds faster than the leaders. So obviously these tires are getting worn out when the track starts to get dry. And I think you'll see some faster times from Montoya and Power. But look how close Connor is.
This is the pit stop cycle playing through. Connor Daly has not pitted in this race yet. So Montoya cycles back to the lead. Will Power second, then Connor Daly you ride with now. Scott Dixon and Joseph Newgarden fourth and fifth. Everybody else has been on pit road in the race except for Connor Daly and Gabby Chavez.
Here fighting for traction when he puts his foot on the gas. No traction control on these cars. It's not like the cars that we drive in the street where we put our foot on the gas and the surface is slippery. The computer takes over. The driver's foot is the computer. No power steering, power brakes, and no ABS. So the driver's really, his foot is, as I always say, the ABS switch is in the driver's foot.
Jan?
Connor Daly is now taking the opportunity to make a stop. And Eddie, I did some quick calculations when you were talking about this fuel usage. Because they were on and off the throttle, People who are stopping now should be good to go. Connor Daly with routine service at 9.3. They should all be good to go with one more stop. Those that stopped earlier that wanted changes, if they're on and off the throttle, they may have to stop an additional time.
And what a great difference that will make at the end of the race.
So Will Power continuing to chop into that lead that Montoya has. There is the gap, first to second, the 2 car to the 1 car. Back to Detroit after this from your ABC station. There's the picture in the race for the lead in the duel in Detroit. Juan Pablo Montoya, Will Power running 1 and 2 and 13 seconds clear of 3rd place, Scott Dixon. Now the hometown Tigers here in Detroit have had a little bit of a rough go out west, and they try and keep from being swept at the hands of the Angels and Mike Trout tonight on Sunday Night Baseball. Detroit, Los Angeles, presented by Taco Bell, 8 Eastern on ESPN and live on Watch ESPN. Track slippery, rain falling, though the end of it appears to be in sight on the radar for a bit, maybe not the complete end of it though. So now on a wet track like this, you see a dry line beginning to form. You're Will Power and you want to get around Montoya. He appears to be a little faster than him at this stage of the race. It's awfully risky getting offline in the wet.
The first thing he has to do is get right up his gearbox, and like you said, he then has to venture off into the damp part of the circuit, apply the brakes and pass him. That's where everybody's making their mistakes. But I'm sure Will Power remembers from St. Pete that catching Montoya is one thing, passing him is another. And when you try to do that on a wet track like this, you have to be very bold and very aggressive.
The St. Pete season opener, when Power led, had a hiccup on pit road, Montoya got in front of him, and when Power tried to pass him back, Juan shut the door. Scott Dixon.
Oh, you can see all the bodywork move there. You can see some parts just start to come off. Very,
That's as close as you can go without taking anything off.
Oh, he did a tremendous job of not letting the impact cause any more damage. Now for Dixon, he is running probably about 0.2 of a second slower than the front 2 guys. Occasionally he gets up there, so he's just trying to catch up on the pace with those guys, and he's now running some 12 seconds behind.
In the wet, things a little spread out at some points in the field. You saw Marco Andretti and Tony Kanaan racing for 15th and 16th. Will Power just lost a bunch of time to Juan Pablo Montoya, and he doesn't appear.
Emergency now, yep. Blip for downshift, blip for downshift. Go to track position 5.
So he's trying different electronic setups, and it sounds like he has something wrong with his downshift.
Yeah, and he's going through the emergency mode right now, because remember, Marco had this problem yesterday where the car started to limp around, so we're not sure why that's happening. But with the fuel trim knob on the steering wheel, you can go from the existing slot position and try different positions to see if you can reset it, and also in the emergency mode to try to override. And then he's now going to have to do the old-fashioned blip the throttle.
Dixon coming, Dixon on the left.
Blip the throttle to match the downshift, match the RPMs to the inch on the downshift. Now just
try emergency mode off, see if it shifts.
Yeah, just trying to
try it on, try emergency mode on.
Just trying to listen to it to see if it was really
neutral.
So he couldn't shift the cars, what that sounded like to me.
It's not going to work, man. Need to change something. Change something.
Yeah, sometimes you come in and change the steering wheel.
Change the steering wheel.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this is taking him out of the race. How unfortunate. That was a great drive.
Now he's got to get drivers right to go to pit lane and keep from getting run over by any oncoming traffic. These steering wheels are like an Xbox game controller, very sophisticated electronics all connecting down through that steering wheel to parts of the car. And then on a wet race, maybe something got wet that didn't need to be, Doc.
Yeah, they told him to take great care of it here, great care of it. Obviously a problem with shifting up and down. They were telling him to hit a number, and they just made the steering wheel change. Crew Chief Matt Johnson taking the steering wheel out, put the other one on, and hopefully they're going to see if the digital readout in terms of shifting what happens from the driver's cockpit is now readable for the driver.
Those steering wheels are worth about $20,000 to $25,000 these days. They're form-fitted to the driver's hands, but more importantly, all the information that you get on your steering wheel is being back to the pit lane so they can see it in real-time telemetry what's going on. But the interesting thing is that sometimes things go wrong. It's almost like having an ECU box being in that steering wheel, and then if
Mark
it works,
Andretti had the same thing yesterday, didn't he, for a moment where he had to reset everything. These cars are controlled completely by electronics, so it's a very complicated system. If something goes wrong, we saw what happens.
And if you noticed, when they took the old steering wheel off, they reached in, it looked like maybe with some compressed air, and were blowing on the connection if there was any moisture in there before they reattached the new steering wheel.
It is a very rare occasion that these cars race in the wet. And we've had two drivers, like we said, both Marco Andretti and Will Power, that had problems with electronics the last 2 days.
So Power from second back to 13th, 43 seconds behind Juan Pablo Montoya, who continues to lead here in Detroit.
When we created the Silverado Rally Edition, we figured, why stop there? These 4 new Silverado Special Editions are just the beginning. From this year's fastest-growing full-size truck brand, Chevy Silverado. Or during the Chevy Memorial Day sale, choose this Silverado All-Star with a total value of $8,500 when you finance through select lenders. Sale ends Monday. See your local Chevy dealer today.
The past 2 years have not seen one running back selected in the first round of the draft. That certainly puts a lot of pressure on Melvin Gordon III to justify the selection. I don't think anyone doubts his ability as a runner, but will he be able to become a consistent threat out of the backfield? He has the potential to be a star. Only time will tell.
Speed Stick gear for moments that matter.
Whether you're on the highway, the back way, the straightaway, or some other way, at Firestone, we believe when the rubber meets the road, the rubber should always win. Durable, dependable, Firestone tires. Whatever you drive, drive Firestone.
It's time to start living and driving like a winner. Enter the Quicken Loans Drive Home a Winner sweepstakes for your chance to win 12 mortgage-free months, courtesy of Quicken Loans, and a 2015 Chevy Colorado. Does it get any better than that? Enter the Quicken Loans Drive Home a Winner sweepstakes today at QLRacing.com. Quicken Loans, engineered to amaze.
Let's dance.
Tonight, we've got comedy, dancing, and dancing comedies. It's a Sunday night celebration with the Dancing 10th Anniversary event. And keep dancing with your favorite comedies, The Middle, The Goldbergs, Modern Family, and Blackish.
Let's get a wiggle out.
It's a swinging Sunday, so show us what you got.
I can raise the roof into the cabbage patch.
I can do the single lady hand thing.
Put your neck into it or you just look like the Queen waving. Okay, now you're ready.
It all starts tonight on ABC.
Watching a pretty good race for 5th and 6th between Helio Castroneves and Graham Rahal as we check in on the leader, Juan Pablo Montoya, out in front by 11 seconds over Scott Dixon now, with Joseph Newgarden 3rd, Sebastian Bourdais 4th, and Castroneves 5th. Will Power 49 seconds back in 13th place. And for more of an update on what happened to that one car, we go back to Doc.
Yeah, I spoke with Team Penske president Tim Cindric, who's actually calling the race for Will Power, and Tim said that there apparently had some moisture that got in the steering wheel and was shorting out some things, and it was popping out of gear in the neutral. It was going into neutral, and he kept trying to upshift and downshift, and it would go back into neutral and not go into gear. So that's why I opted to come in. That's why they lost all that space on the racetrack. They came in, made the steering wheel change, and since then there have been no complaints, so apparently that may have fixed the problem.
Well, that's a very bad break for Will Power, the second place driver in the championship, starting this race. So let's get up to speed with Carfax. We begin by checking in on the race leader, Juan Pablo Montoya, and we go back to Doc.
And Juan Pablo Montoya, who's excited about the fact that he may be able to win for the second Sunday in a row. And the fact that we are under wet conditions puts him right in his wheelhouse. He said, I learned to drive wet racetracks in Europe in Formula One, and I felt good about what I'm doing. Right now, what he feels best about is the fact that he is up front, leading the race, and still making a fuel number, which he's got to be able to make the fuel number to be able to maybe minimize the number of pit stops. Behind him, some 10 seconds back, is Scott Dixon. There is Scott driving for Chip Ganassi. Dixon had a great pit stop, best pit stop of the day, 7.6 seconds, 4 tires. And here, Dixon right now is being told, take care of your tires and take care of the fuel. Yeah, he's 10 seconds back, but if those tires can hang on and Montoya burns his off, he will close the gap here in 8 or 9 laps. Let's go to Jan Bikas.
And Doc, you can see as we swing back, Joseph Newgarden having a good run, now putting a little distance between he and Sebastian Bourdais. This morning in qualifying, or the warm-up if you want to call it, he was not all that happy with this car in wet conditions. He said, I don't really like to change the car for wet. I like to drive a dry car in the wet. So what that means is, as this dry line develops, Joseph Newgarden should be going even faster. Doc?
And see behind him that green car with the white on the front, the 11 car, that is Sebastian Bourdais, the former 4-time open wheel champion. Bourdais, also a former Formula One driver. Now Montoya told me, he said, besides myself, Bourdais may be the best guy out here in wet conditions, and he's proven it right now. On the previous pit stop, Bourdais came in 6th, and they actually had such a great pit stop, they beat Helio Castroneves out to gain a spot. By the way, this team went up on air pressures on the last stop to help Bourdais, and it seems to be making a difference. Now behind him is Helio Castroneves, the only driver to win 3 times here in Detroit, and Castroneves wanted a wing change on that previous stop. He said, I want to take some front wing out to be able to help the car in handling. It's helped a little bit, but not nearly enough. Let's go to Rick.
And right behind him is Graham Rahal. It's interesting to point out, last year at this race, he had a mixed bag. He finished 2nd in one race, 21st in the other. Well, yesterday he finished 23rd, and now he's running up in the top 6. Now, they were telling him just a moment ago that he's running laps faster than Montoya is, but they also warned him that this may turn into a fuel mileage race as well. So they've already asked him to start saving some gas. But they also remind him that right behind him is Luca Filippi, so they've got to be careful as well. Let's listen to what Graham Rahal had to say.
I'm sorry I have to repeat that, but so you know, this could turn into a fuel mileage race, so if you can save it, do it, but Luca's right behind you.
So that the summation of where things stand at this point in the race, where Graham Rahal is concerned. There is Luca Filippi in the 20. Remember, one of the early ones to make a move to pit road in that round of green flag stops for the majority of the team, and has moved up nicely in this race. And Connor Daly continuing to hold very good track position, subbing for James Hinchcliffe in the 5 car for Schmidt-Peterson Racing. And Connor in 8th position.
So what they would like Rahal to do is go fast and use less fuel. That's a
easy equation.
That's a hard equation to work out.
Rahal all over the back of Castroneves now. But again, like we were talking about before, stepping off onto the wet line to make that pass is a decision you've got to take very seriously.
But Castroneves is a very correct driver. If he can get himself inside of him, he'll get a clean pass. Here we are approaching the fastest part of the track. And they're starting to become a dry line, Scott.
More so on this front section, still very slippery in the back as we look forward to Helio Castroneves. I have to think back to Indy and him having that crash and getting in the air, and didn't really have a great Indy 500 in Helio Castroneves' terms. Obviously a strong finish, but we always expect to see him contending for the win, and maybe not as competitive as he wanted to be yesterday in the race, and right now we find him back in 5th. So takes a while to get back under stride once you've had an accident like that.
So turning point of the race when Will Power had to stop to change the steering wheel out on his car, separating him from the man he was dueling with all race long, the leader, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Our Pizza Hut Big Flavor Dipper Pizza is almost 2 feet of pizza. Whoa. You're gonna need a bigger car.
Get the new Big Flavor Dipper Pizza with 4 flavorful sauces and a free Pepsi 2-liter with online orders. Just $12.99. Only at Pizza Hut.
Before sponsorship logos jockeying for position. Before speeds hit the triple digits. Before checkered flags, victory laps, pit crew, milk baths, and the smell of burning rubber and ethanol became just another day at the office. There was just a dream. Honda is proud to sponsor the IndyCar dreams of future drivers everywhere.
Right now, Verizon is offering unlimited talk and text, plus 10 gigs of shareable data. Yeah, 10 gigantic gigs for $80 a month and $15 per line. More data than ever for more of what you want on the network that's #1 in speed, call, data, and reliability. So you never have to settle. $80 a month for 10 gigs and $15 per line. Stop by or visit us online and save without settling. Only on Verizon.
The essence of racing.
Right now at Pizza Hut, you can get any 2 medium pizzas for $6.99 each. Choose any crust, any sauce, any toppings. So go for it, America. Get any toppings, any crust flavor, anything you want on any 2 medium pizzas for just $6.99 each. Only at Pizza Hut.
Montoya with an 8.6-second lead over Scott Dixon in the second duel in Detroit race for the Verizon IndyCar Series here at the Raceway at Belle Isle Park. Reminder that next weekend, the IndyCar Series is back to oval track racing. Fort Worth, Saturday night, the Firestone 600 at Texas Motor Speedway. See it on CNBC at 8 Eastern Time next weekend. And next weekend on the ESPN networks, the drag racing continues with the Toyota NHRA Summer Nationals from Englishtown. Qualifying Saturday night, 11 Eastern, ESPN2. And final eliminations on Sunday at 9 Eastern on ESPN2. There is Montoya again with a nearly 9-second lead on Dixon. And Marco Andretti on pit road. Rick?
Yeah, what do you do when you're struggling in the back of the field? Take a gamble, and what they're doing is they're putting slicks on. They have made big adjustments to Marco's car on multiple occasions. It hasn't worked. They had a big discussion about what to do. Michael basically said, we got nothing to lose. We're running around the back. Let's give it a try.
James Jakes also leaving pit road after another stop. Remember, he tried to go to slicks gamble earlier in the race, and it didn't pay off. Doc?
And Juan Pablo Montoya apparently is trying to make a number. Whoops, a problem on the racetrack, guys.
Car into the wall. The 18, Rodolfo Gonzalez, has crashed. Full course yellow. First one of the race. Break for Will Power in terms of closing the gap on Juan Pablo Montoya. Felipe did not make the pit road line before the caution came out, so he has to drive through and come back around in order to pit without further penalty.
Very frustrating when that happens.
Gonzalez trying to look and see what the damage might be to the left front corner of his car under that tire barrier.
You see him in the back section of the frame there. Looks like he was just offline or just overdrove the turn and did not have the front wheels turn, ended up going in the tire barrier. Great for these tire barriers all the way around the racetrack. Sometimes you're lucky and you can just hit them softly and pop back out, but this one here has certainly stuck his nose in there. As you mentioned, great for Will Power, so he gets to get further up into the closer to the group right now as everybody's going to pack up for this restart. But the other thing is going to be interesting is that everybody was probably watching to see if Andretti was going to have quick lap times in the dry, Alan, but we won't know that answer now.
Back after this from your ABC stations. Full course yellow here at the Raceway at Belle Isle Park. Duel in Detroit being led by Juan Pablo Montoya. You saw Marco Andretti and James Jakes on pit road under the green flag. Marco getting the slick tires. Didn't get out in front of Montoya. Trapped behind him and the pace car. Here as the field packs up for these pit stops. They come to the opening of pit lane, and we expect it to be quite busy down there. Jan?
We expect it to be very busy. Joseph Newgarden, you see him trying to get into position. He will be one of the first to stop because of his pit position. They're also going to go with the slick tires. But by the timing of this, Alan, all these cars that stop right now, it will no longer be a fuel economy race. It's going to be a race of speed. First to speed for the pit crews. In the case for Joseph Newgarden, let's get to Doc.
Scott Dixon pitting. He will take all 4 tires. They're going to put rain tires back on the second place car. Had a great pit stop before. Dixon in and out. Here comes Bourdais. Oh, almost contact Bourdais. And Montoya slides sideways, gathers it back up, and keeps his car off of Bourdais. Great save by Juan Pablo Montoya.
That just shuffled the deck. Connor Daly did not stop, nor did Hunter Ray and Power. Juan Pablo Montoya had a slow stop.
A lot more front wing being put in.
And he's anxious to go. He says,
get out of the way.
Get out of the way, I'm leaving.
Now watch this correction. He almost spun leaving the pits.
Lost a couple of spots. And again, interesting, the call by Doc that Dixon went back out on the rain tires. Follow up on all of that and get ready for the restart in just a minute. The pot hath been stirred here at Detroit in the Duel in Detroit race number 2 for the Verizon IndyCar Series by a caution that brought about a whirl of pit strategy. So Connor Daly, Ryan Hunter-Reay, and Will Power did not stop under this yellow flag. They are first, second, and third. Scott Dixon, note the treads in the tires. He's fourth, first off pit lane on rain tires. Bourdais, red sidewall. Montoya, red sidewall. The alternate slick tires for this restart.
They have to get these tires up to temperature as quickly as they can because, as Scott said earlier, there's a part of the track that is still very damp. But if it continues to dry, those 2 drivers, Montoya and Bourdais, will have a big advantage over the rest of the field. But it's going to be very tricky.
The pot was stirred a little bit on the pit lane also in a different way.
You see the 20 of Luca Filippi coming out and just touching the wing of 83 Charlie Kimball, which we believe gave him just a little bit of damage. And Montoya's going, I'm leaving, guys, whether you're ready or not.
Watch laps.
See, goes sideways here, catches it. Pit lane still very slippery, very talented.
Well, what happened there is that he had slicks on.
Can't do that, dude. Come on, guys. Trying to get the wing. It's half of it, but we lost.
No comment.
It wasn't going to be nice. It wasn't going to be arable, so he just says no comment. Doc?
Let's check with Jan.
And I can tell you specifically why they had to give it so many turns of wing and certainly why he's frustrated. When you go from wet tires to dry, you need more front wing. When you go to the red sidewalled alternate, typically you need a couple more turns of wing. So they went all the way from wet tire to red sidewall. That takes a lot of crank. So the team's trying to they told him how many predetermined turns they wanted. Obviously, at that time, he wanted to leave.
The track will be dry. If we don't have any more rain, and it looks like it's clearing up, the track will be dry, so you have to get your setup as close as you can to the perfect dry setup because it will make a big difference towards the end of the race.
Download the IndyCar 15 mobile app and get live streams from in-car cameras like this one on Simon Pagenaud's car and more from Verizon.
See Simon weaving the steering wheel, trying to warm up the front tires, accelerate to try and spin the rears, and Charlie Kimball, you can see, he has now put the red sidewall tires on.
The Levemir Flex Touch onboard camera, trying to look over the nose of that car and see if he got any wing damage in that pit road contact that he had with Luca Filippi. Okay, this will get interesting. A mix of wet tires and slick tires. People out on older, wet tires.
And they're all cold tires. and they don't work well when they're cold.
Connor Daly, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Will Power, Scott Dixon, Sebastian Bourdais, and the dominator of this race, Juan Pablo Montoya, now back in 6th.
Nice start for Connor. Nicely timed.
Luca Filippi's around and into the wall.
Now the drivers that have the wets on have the option of getting offline. When you have these slicks on, you cannot go offline. Full course yellow.
The caution for Filippi, who's on the straightaway between turns 1 and 2.
And he had slicks on. And another car's in the barrier. Coletti's in the barrier. And I believe he had slicks on also.
Yeah, those are slick tires on that car.
You cannot get on the damp part of the track with these slick tires. It takes a lot of experience and a lot of self-control to stay on that narrow patch of drying road. It really isn't dry yet, just drying. He just lost complete grip, and there's nothing you can do when that happens.
Stefano Coletti, Luca Filippi with troubles.
As you watch this here, just look at the top of the screen right now. Filippi is going to end up getting over that creek as we talk about. He's already a little bit wide. When you go over that creek, the car starts to get a little bit airborne. The back end started to come around from him, and they just lost it. Riding along with Tony Kanaan, he sees it all happen in front of him and accelerates away from the crash scene, which is a smart thing to do.
So that was part A of the incident. Part B.
And Coletti didn't stand a chance. He was way too wide.
Off on the wet part of the track on the slick tires. So they refired Filippi, but he's going to be coming to the pit lane because he's got some damage on that car. And the pace car back out in front of the field for just the second time in this race since the start. Connor Daly, the race leader in the duel in Detroit. Going to get a new wing on each end of the 20 car for Luca Filippi. Stefano Coletti driving away from pit lane as we are under caution for the second time in the duel in Detroit with Connor Daly, the race leader.
But I think the track conditions being as they are, he will lead quite a few laps.
What if your imaginary friend wasn't imaginary? Don't miss the series premiere of The Whispers tomorrow night, 10, 9 Central here on ABC. So my handy-dandy weather apps say the rain is done. So the drying track conditions will continue to be a story in this race. Story of the days so far, or stories if you're just joining us. Yesterday's winner, Carlos Munoz, out early with a mechanical problem under the engine cover on his 26 machine. Then Will Power dueling with Juan Pablo Montoya all race long for the lead. In fact, got the lead on the initial jump into turn number 1, then had a problem that brought him to pit road.
And they had to come in and change the steering wheel because he had an electronic problem. You can see the crew member there ready to change the steering wheel. These steering wheels today are almost like a black box full of electronics, and they make that change successfully, and the car is back to running properly.
Juan Pablo Montoya's dominated until this last pit stop.
He obviously came in for slicks on a wet track, and leaving the pits, he almost lost it, would have collected the wall, and he wasn't very happy that they spent so much time adjusting his front wing.
That, our Mother's Race rundown on what has happened through the first 43 laps of 70 scheduled today here at Detroit. One to go is the signal being given from the flag stand. Connor Daly leads. Ryan Hunter-Reay is running in second.
How's it going over there? Well, it certainly wasn't what we were looking for, but might be okay if we could just go green for a while. We need all those guys to stop again after you do, and then we'll be looking good.
So, tying that all together, again, Daly, Hunter-Reay, Power, and Dixon, the first 4, still on the rain tires. Then Bourdais and Montoya on the first of the 2 of the drivers on the slick tires. My count, I have 5 drivers on the rain tires still, 4 on the black primary tires, and everybody else on the red, softer alternate tires at this point. And again, by the tools that I use, we're done with the rain. Now it's a matter of to what degree the track surface continues to dry for the guys that are still on the wet tires.
I think it is advantage Montoya and Bourdais. It will take them a few laps. The track will continue to dry. Daly will do everything he can to lead as many laps as he can. Hunter-Reay has wets on behind him, so I think those two are not going to run away from the field, and that will allow Montoya and Bourdais to get stronger and stronger as it continues not to rain.
Those drivers that do have the rain tires on that you're talking about, watch for them to go offline to try and look for the water that they can drive to cool the tires down, to try to make sure that they're going to last a little bit longer. But I think the guys with the rain tires on right now are sitting ducks after about another 5 or 6 laps.
And let's remember, Connor Daly is a rookie. He's done a lot of racing in Europe, but this is a lot of pressure for him to be under, and I think he's done very well so far.
Daly, the 23-year-old son of former Formula One and IndyCar driver and broadcaster Derek Daly from the Indianapolis area, got the ride in the Indy 500. The car broke down before he even got to take the green flag, but was tapped to fill in for James Hinchcliffe in this 5-car here at Detroit. He leads the field as they come to the restart. That'll be with 25 laps to go. A lot of racing left to be done. Neves with a move on Newgarden. Graham Rahal tries to follow through.
Look at Daly pull away from Hunter-Reay.
Just don't slide the car, don't take the tires off. The advantage with the rain tires is that they are still a softer compound, meaning more grip than even the red slick tires that some of the other guys are using. But will you overheat them? Here's where he's going to have to be very smooth on the steering wheel, very smooth on the throttle, not to try to abuse the tires, because once they start to go off, he'll start to go much, much slower.
Now for Daly and Ryan Hunter-Reay, it's been 22 and 25 laps since they've been on the pit lane. So with a pit window of up to 28 laps, but add some time to that because of time spent under caution, it's not all that long till they're going to have to come to pit road for fuel.
Daly has to keep on doing what he's doing and get as much distance as he can between the cars, between himself and the cars behind, but he is doing a phenomenal job in difficult conditions to continue to go away. Jan?
You had talked about not too many laps until the 2 front runners have to stop. By my calculations, Connor Daly can go to lap 54, but Hunter-Reay will be in first. I think he can only go as far as lap 51, so he doesn't have much time to work with.
And we saw going down that back straight, he did everything he should have done by going into the puddles and trying to cool off his tires. He needs to stretch those tires as far as he can.
Montoya working on Sebastian Bourdais to try and reclaim the spot that he lost on pit road.
And they both have slicks on, so this is a battle amongst equals right now.
And as you mentioned with the slick tires, if you go offline, off the dry line, that's the time where it's very hard for you to make that judgment. Is the track going to be dry enough to try this or not?
But you can tell, just look at the road, how there's even a difference in color. And that's the color that the drivers are working to stay in. Here's a slippery bit you keep talking about, Scott.
Oh, I found it very slippery even in the dry. It's just so difficult back there in that fountain area. And here's turn 11 where the guys go through. And you see the trees are there, and I always found it very slippery through that area also. Not much wind is getting over there. Turn 11 looks like it's still very slippery for the drivers.
Bourdais has been very competitive this season. He is so close to having that first win, and today might be the day if he can continue to gain on the cars in front of him. Very tricky part of the race. They cannot put a foot wrong. Every lap they do with these slick tires, they will get more and more competitive because they're starting to build heat into them.
Talk about Sebastian Bourdais, out of all the road course racing that he's done and racing in Le Mans, a very talented driver. Remember, he's won 4 championships, but when you just take the open wheel road course races into respect right now, 23.9% of the races that he's done on road courses he has won, which is very impressive.
They are all over Dixon that is running on wets, and Castroneves is as close as you can get to a car without running into. Look how close, and he's on the damn part of the track, and he's got it done.
He got Dixon moved over there, so that worked.
Montoya couldn't take the same move, though, over onto the wet and the heavy braking zone on the slick tires.
The drivers with slicks have to get on the dry bit when they're braking. If not, they will just slide straight into the wall.
Takuma Sato moving in to join this group.
Montoya's losing a lot of time.
Here's Sato, Graham Rahal. Oh, caught the curb. Rahal shut the door.
It was Rahal's corner.
And for Sato, that just makes you more determined to get past the guy that just did that to you.
Rick?
Hunter Ray brought the car in. They're going to go to black tires, make a minor wing adjustment. I can tell you that they have set up several times. Their goal was to go as long as they possibly could in their fuel window. They think they're good to the end, Doc.
And Roger Penske has called Helio Castroneves in. This will make their final stop. Going to go ahead for the first time today and put the red slick tires. They've had the rain tires on the entire race. Getting it full of fuel. Got to be full of fuel. Down and away for Castroneves.
Bourdais' biggest buddy right now is Scott Dixon. He's holding up Montoya, who has a very fast car, but he gets by him. He gets by him. Maybe not.
Backstretch. Montoya looking for the dry braking zone. As Bourdais gets by Power, Montoya gets by Dixon. Rahal follows him through.
But Bourdais has a big jump on Montoya. It's going to be hard for him to close that gap. The absolute wrong tires right now, Scott, are the rain tires. Slicks have just come into a category of their own.
And you saw that power down with Montoya trying to go around Dixon. And when you're trying to do that, as we're seeing this right now, a little difficulty.
And Sato gets by.
And Sato gets by, exactly, because when you try to put the power down, you get so much squirm out of the back of the car as Dixon decides it's now time to come in. You don't get any traction whatsoever.
Will Power and Scott Dixon both on pit lane. Doc?
And remember, this is their last stop. Others will have to make one more stop. Will Power, the first one in, the winner a year ago here, and he will put on the sticker red tires. Soft compound, slick tires, getting it full of fuel, adjustment in the rear, and he is way behind him. Scott Dixon still getting his tires put on, and now Dixon is away trying to get traction out of his pit box.
So now the question becomes, what circumstances present themselves that shake up this strategy, this rolling strategy play that we're seeing at the moment? Car in the wall. Joseph Newgarden was just on the pit lane. He's crashed heavily.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Newgarden was just on the pit lane with Power and Dixon.
When you come out of the pits, those tires, they are stone cold and they have absolutely no grip.
Now watch the top of the screen. If he just came out of pit lane trying to put the power down, it starts to swap sides.
Oh. Looks like he almost hit the hole in the wall, the gap in the wall.
Yeah, I'm not clear why that's there, but especially in such a particular spot of the racetrack like that. But
he got very lucky there. Very, very lucky.
So when the car starts to come out from underneath you, you correct with the steering, and then when the car grips itself, it generally goes where the front wheels are turned, and that's exactly what happened to Joseph.
As Joseph climbs from the car, we're very happy to see that. Jan?
Yes, and we had just observed his pit stop. You had mentioned he had just left the pits, and those were the red alternate Firestones, but they were a brand new set, sticker sets as we call them. And Eddie, as you know, and Scott, on those sticker sets of tires, they even take a little bit more warming up. They're treacherous until they get up to speed, especially if you hit a wet patch.
absolutely right, Jan. I always found it seems like it's the release gel out of the mold or something like that that is on those tires when they are so slick. You definitely need a couple of corners on them to make sure that they have a little bit more grip than when you first put them on. It's so difficult, and you can spin the rear tires on leaving the pit lane, so the rear tires are warm. Sometimes you get a bit more traction on that, but you certainly have to wait for at least a couple of laps, Eddie.
Getting back to the leader of the race, I think it would be a very good moment for Daly to think of coming into the pits.
So the reason, Eddie, you were talking about that opening in the wall, so that you know on a long high-speed straightaway like that, you have to have access places for the safety vehicles to access, and that is the corner where Joseph Newgarden came in and caught the wall.
And if you look at it, the angle of the wall that he hit could have been very bad. He barely missed that corner that we see. And when you hit a wall, it's always much better to side slap it. He didn't. He was turning him with the front at a very awkward angle. If he would have hit that maybe 15 feet earlier, the damage would have been a lot more severe.
Let's check downstairs with Jan.
And Eddie just mentioned this would be a good time for Connor Daly to pit. Well, it is a good time. In fact, they had set out tires just before this caution, but unfortunately, when the field packs up, he's going to come on pit road. You lose 22 seconds with a full fill of fuel. Had it stayed green, he would have dropped back somewhere mid-pack. Now, because they've packed up, unfortunately, he's going to lose all his track position.
He's had a great race so far. What he needs to do now is finish.
So here they come to the pit opening, and Connor Daly will give up the lead and head onto the pit lane. Let's go back to Jan.
And of course, the whole crew and Connor Daly love what they saw. He shows what he can do behind the wheel, knows that there's no rush on this. This is under full course caution. He'll also go with, yes, those are brand new sticker Firestone Reds, having a little bit of a slow right rear and waiting for some fuel. But again, it doesn't matter. He knows he's going to lose his track position. Some others coming onto pit road to top up as well. You know, it's not the end of the day for him. Something can happen. He certainly does not have to stop again. He's good till the end of the race.
The twists of plot continue here in Detroit. Sebastian Bourdais, now the race leader, after Joseph Newgarden's heavy crash exiting the pits. Back after this from your ABC station. Reminder to enter at shophonda.com for a chance to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race in the Honda two-seat IndyCar, driven by Mario Andretti. That yesterday here at Detroit. They didn't run the two-seater today because it was a downpour when it was time.
If they're running it right now, they're in the race.
Yeah, that's right. So interesting, this third full course caution of the race, and it extending a few laps to repair the wall where Joseph Newgarden hit between turns 2 and 3, and how it might affect the outcome where fuel stops are concerned. Doc?
Well, Jimmy Vasser has told his driver, Sebastian Bourdais, that maybe we pit last time. Maybe we pit last time by because we can only make it to lap 64. We are 6 laps short. Bourdais said, I have not been in fuel-saving mode at all, but I can get there. If we pit now, we have no shot of winning the race. Let me stay out and save fuel, and if I can save enough and we get some yellow laps, caution laps, we will win this race. Right now, he's got to somehow make up 6 laps that he's short on fuel.
Well,
six laps?
That's an interesting gamble. But the way the yellow flag has been flying in this one, they might get it.
And he deserves it. They've been so close this year to getting it right.
One of the other drivers to watch for because of all these guys that we know might make it, might not make it. We'll have to see if they cough in the last couple of laps. But Charlie Kimball pitted back in lap 43, so maybe that might be a possibility there. And Jan, you can fill us in more on the pit strategy down there?
Yes, the way that you save laps, and they're talking about 6 laps, that was prior to this caution. So for every 2 laps you do behind the pace car, you gain 1. You save enough fuel to get another lap of green. So essentially, if you have to save 6, that means 12 laps of caution will get you there. But at the same time, as Sebastian Bourdais said, if you go into fuel-saving mode, maybe save half of it on the track, get the half of it with these cautions. If this takes a little while, that whole front group, I think, is going to have a real shot to get to the end.
Well, they are finishing up the cleanup and repair, so we're going to be going back to racing momentarily This coming lap, the green flag will wave when they get to the start-finish line. Green flag waves next for the Verizon IndyCar Series at Texas Motor Speedway next Saturday night for the Firestone 600, 8 Eastern. See that one on CNBC, and we wish our friends there luck with the rest of the IndyCar season. The NHRA Dragster is going to be up in New Jersey at Englishtown for the Toyota NHRA Summer Nationals. See qualifying Saturday at 11 Eastern and final eliminations next Sunday at 9 Eastern on ESPN2. Scott Dixon's team talking strategy.
3 laps, maybe 4 laps short. So they're gonna do one of 2 things. They're either gonna slow way down or they're gonna halt so they can find the pit lane with a 22-second gap, because we know that's what they need.
So a lot of possibilities is basically the formula wide open at the moment for how this one's going to finish.
We should send him a thank you note. That was the most concise strategy development that we have heard.
You expect no less from Mike Hull?
No, we should. I've got to start texting him in the middle of the race.
A couple of updates. You will see Tristan Vautier, who's back up to 7th place now, and Marco Andretti, who was a lap down earlier by the pit strategy, got waved around the pace car, and by the other shuffling of pit stops, Marco is now back up to 9th place. So it's Bourdais, Montoya, Rahal, Sato, Pagenaud, your top 5, as they begin to gas it up and go for it. Montoya with a bid for the lead.
The man is struggling.
Outside, clear.
Boy, those cars sure are darting a lot coming around too.
Oh, great battle between Montoya and Rahal.
Contact and around.
Who was it that wanted some yellows?
Forrest Coletti. He was the one that got bumped and spun. Karam was stopped in it. That's Connor Daly driving away. Jack Hawksworth, 41, also driving away. At the moment, it's just a local yellow.
It's looking like the number 4, Coletti, maybe stalled his car so he could not get that moved. If he doesn't move here shortly, probably will be underneath that full course caution.
If they can't get the car out of the way, it will be a full course caution.
Well, it's at the end of that long straightaway in turn 3.
Neither car has moved yet. Still under just the local yellow.
Got a local yellow turn 3.
Now the drivers have to slow down on that local yellow. There we go.
Yellow, yeah.
Very good call.
That was a very wise decision. Especially with the dampness offline on the track and 2 stalled cars there and safety workers on the track. Very prudent call there by IndyCar officials.
So this plays into Bourdais' hand, plays into Montoya's hand, and plays into Rahal's hand.
2 of them sitting next to each other, getting refired.
And they're both negotiating to get refired first.
Oh, look at this. They're making it 3 or 4 wide, so everybody's just bunching down into there.
And Karam just came in too hot and hit the back. And he just runs into the back of him.
Sage Karam into the back of the 41 of Jack Hawksworth and just lifts up the back of the car, uses contact with the road and spins him around.
Connor Daly able to pick his way through that, so caution number 4 out in this race with 15 laps to go. The plot thickens here in Detroit. Sebastian Bourdais, the leader. Coming to a restart here at the Raceway at Belle Isle Park. Verizon IndyCar Series, duel in Detroit, down to 13 laps to go, and they take the green flag. Sebastian Bourdais, Juan Pablo Montoya, Graham Rahal, Takuma Sato, Simon Pagenaud, the top 5. Montoya tried to go side by side at the last restart. See what happens this time.
Green.
Will Power around Marco Andretti for a spot. That's 9th.
A lot of movement in the back of the field. That's Dixon.
Castroneves tries to follow him through.
This is when you're pushing so hard because you know it means so much to the end of the race. Your heart rate is just going a mile a minute. You're just trying to make sure you can drive the car in as deep as possible without just driving it too tough and too hard into the turn and making it slip and losing position.
Bourdais will not give Montoya an inch. They've been trying so hard to get their first win, and he's driving perfectly today. They're both very aggressive. And if they make a mistake, Rahal is there for his first win right behind him.
Wow, 15
and
stops out. Here comes Sato.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be looked at by race control. You saw Rahal get the back end out just a little bit, lost traction, started to lose some space between him and Sato.
Well, we know what happens with that blocking rule towards the end. Everybody's a bit less careful with it.
Like is able to get through this high-speed sweeper on the front stretch from turn 1 down to from turn 14 down through turn 2 and put a gap on Montoya as Power tries to pick up another spot.
And that's a really important place to do it.
Sweeps from one side of the track to the other.
Contact! Charlie Kimball clips his teammate Scott Dixon, and Dixon's into the tires.
He didn't clip him, he ran into him. I don't think he realized that Dixon was alongside him.
Well, that started a couple of turns ago because the way that they were swapping back and forth, and
totally unintentional. Dixon had done such a good race.
The third place driver in the championship starting the day. And down at the far end of the course by turn 4, he's in the tires.
Well, there's no more fuel strategy being played now. Everybody has enough fuel to race it to the end.
Seeing Kimball's just trying to get back into line on the dry section of the racetrack to get ready to take the next turn, does not realize that his teammate Scott Dixon's beside him. Watch this, just a quick punt. Grass never has much grip.
No, especially when it's wet.
I'm sure Kimball's radioing back in there right now, said sorry, didn't see
yellow. Full course yellow.
The fewer laps left in the race, the more the balance between give and take swings to take.
Yes.
Yellow flag number 5 out. 11 to go here in Detroit. Sebastian Bourdais leads. A rainy, wet weekend in the Motor City. The duel in Detroit yesterday, shortened by weather. Today's on a drying track, but caution slowed in its late stages.
See Charlie Kimball just trying to get back in line behind Will Power so he could actually get ready for the turn. Takes out his teammate Scott Dixon driving the target machine, so there'll be a conversation, I'm sure, in the paddock later tonight.
Look at this. Look at Rahal go all the way to the other side of the track to block Sato.
Because of that action, IndyCar officials have told Graham Rahal he must move behind Takuma Sato for this restart. So Sato to third, Rahal to fourth.
I love it when they make those decisions as quickly as they did this time. Often we have those arguments that go in all the way to next week.
Yeah, and it's the correct call. But, 3 aggressive guys here at the very beginning of this field, all with Formula One experience.
And a very hungry Graham Rahal.
Let's check with Doc.
Well, let's check on the fuel mileage up front. Now, even with all these yellows right now, they have done the recalculation for Bourdais, and they have just told him that you are just under 2 laps short on fuel. You cannot make it under 2 laps short. That's if you make 3.1. And behind him, Montoya's guys, well, they're not saying much, but they're nodding their head that he may be short as well. So it's whoever can hang on and save a little these final few laps.
Big accordion in the restart jam. Look at this to turn 1.
Not much traction on the wet stuff.
Kimball survived a shove.
Oh, didn't he? Yeah, he was lucky.
There goes Karam again up the inside.
Oh. And Jack Hawksworth is turned around, exit 3, keeps it running.
Gather it up, you're good. Gather it up, you're good.
This is when you've got just mist coming out of your ears.
Why is there a full course yellow?
Yellow. We'll still have time to go racing here. Be patient.
Well, that's because of all that. That's why there's a full course yellow. That is the exit of turn number 11 coming to the restart. Remember I mentioned that there was a big accordion coming to the restart?
So that happened before we actually took the green.
Yeah, before those first couple of corners.
Boy, it got sure to get busy here. Look at Kimball. Right about here, he gets broadsided by
Will Power.
By Power?
Is that Power? Castroneves, sorry.
And he keeps going. Now watch the right-hand side. Little bump, get out of the way. Okay, and
This is the one where Jack Hawksworth in the ABC supply machine gets turned around. And just a little nudge by number 8, Sage Karam.
Didn't he have that problem earlier in that corner?
He did, yes. Poor guy can't get through there.
And damage to the left front wing of Will Power's car.
He might get away with that, Alan, here.
Your left-hand end plate's gone. The flap is flapping.
That from Charlie Kimball's car as bits and pieces are shed around the speedway. As we go to fenderless, full fendered racing in the closing laps here in Detroit. A lap away from a restart that'll come with 6 to go here in Detroit. Sebastian Bourdais leads. Doc?
Jimmy Vasser is the co-owner and strategist for Sebastian Bourdais. Jimmy, I heard you telling me it was 6 laps and then 3 laps, and now with the yellows. How close is it?
We're still not there yet. I think we need another yellow, and another yellow might make it a timed race, which could shorten it by a lap. So it's right now we don't have it. We don't have it to make it to the end. I think Montoya's in the same boat.
All right, Montoya and Bourdais, maybe a lap short, guys. But remember, the clock is ticking.
Well, at the rate we keep producing these yellows.
Let's hear what Juan Pablo is thinking about his situation.
Now we need 3.4 and 4 laps of yellow. So anything you can do out there for us. I know it's not good, but it might be coming back to us.
So still needy on the fuel.
So how is Furtado doing on the fuel, Alan? That's the big question right now, isn't it?
He stopped at the same lap that Bourdais and Montoya did.
Rick? He's in a Honda.
And I just talked with Larry Foyt just a moment ago, and I asked, can he go the distance? And he kind of looked at me and said, maybe. This yellow's helping a lot. But the interesting thing is Graham Rahal, who's right behind him, they just came on the radio and told him they think he's good to go the rest of the way on fuel.
6 laps to go, coming to a restart. Wow, Sato with a big jump on Montoya. Here comes Graham Rahal to Montoya's inside.
Montoya falls back to 4th.
And Will Power gets tagged. He tags Castroneves. Crash exiting turn 2.
Well, this probably helps the guys in front that were looking at their yellow.
Of all the cars for...
And the interesting thing that this probably does, the guy that was 5th in line that probably could have gone all the way to the end was Power.
There's the yellow flag, full course. Will Power's car in the wall, exiting turn 2, and clipping his teammate Helio Castroneves going across the track.
Yeah, that's a hard one to explain on Monday.
Yeah, like I said, Will Power had pitted a lot later, so he probably could have gone to the end. So if those guys in the front had faltered and not made it because of the fuel mileage, then he was looking pretty good. But now he's taking himself out.
Now, the red flag is being displayed by IndyCar officials. They will bring all cars to pit road. They will stop the race to try and clean up the track and see if they can get the fans a green flag finish.
And they cannot work on the cars.
So what happened to Will Power exiting that tricky turn number 2?
Remember, very difficult coming up over the hill. This is where the creek is underneath. Looks like he gets a little tap from the 19, which just sends his car sideways and goes and takes out his teammate.
Well, at that point, he was totally out of control.
So
He gets clipped right here.
Yep. Tristan Vautier is on the inside, just enough over that high part of the racetrack when the car is light anyways, doesn't have contact with the ground.
And Marco's just relieved they went to the left because he had absolutely nowhere to go.
So bringing the field down pit road and stopping them under the red flag to clean this mess up. There are 6 laps to go in the race. There'll be 5 when they roll back out onto the racetrack. And the field is stopped here in Detroit. And this adds to the layers on the onion of what's going to determine the winner of this one. Now look at Takuma Sato on the restart.
Amazing move, very courageous. Important to get those passes done on the restart because that's the easiest time to pass a car, but very risky here at Detroit.
And Eddie, you mentioned that Juan Pablo, maybe a little bit of sleep on that restart. Not something that he's usually doing because he's usually the aggressive guy.
Get ready.
So now it's green. Now you can pass, and here comes Sato. Sato never gives you a chance if he has the possibility to pass.
That's Montoya's finger on the button, complaining on the radio about that, I'm sure.
Green, green, green.
He almost hit the pit entrance wall.
Your opinion? Jump start?
I couldn't really, I heard green, 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 and then I saw Sato arrive, so it would be a very close call. And all Rahal did, he just took advantage of the fact that Montoya was caught by surprise, and he fed his car into the hole.
Well, I think what really happened here was the 14 of Sato in that ABC supply car was lagging back a little bit, so when the green came, he already had speed and momentum on Juan Pablo Montoya. So I think we go back and we can actually start to time code this a little bit to see what's happening.
That's fine.
Now listen to when they say green.
Get ready. Green, green, green.
Oh, that's close.
Now there is a slight delay on our radio.
That's close. That's something that the sanctioning body is going to have to look at.
Well, interesting turn of events late here in Detroit. We check with Doc.
Yeah, let's check in with Roger Penske. And Roger, you love seeing your guys race each other, but you don't see them like it having contact. From your vantage point, what happened out there?
I couldn't tell. It was pretty mixed up there on the start, and they got over the hill here. I couldn't see it, so for me to say what happened, I don't know. All I know is we got 2 good cars out, but what a race, for the fans here. They waited here all day long here in Detroit, and we'll see what the finish is going to bring. It's going to be exciting.
I know you're up here calling Elio's pits, but it looks like some of these guys are really close on fuel, including Juan Pablo Montoya. Now with the red flag, how much of a gamble is it these last few laps to be able to have enough fuel to finish?
I think they're all right on fuel. I think with these last few yellows, they put them in a good spot here. They'll make it without a problem.
Okay, Roger Penske. Let's go to Rick.
We're standing by with Larry Foyt, Takuma Sato's strategist, and let's first talk about fuel. Does Takuma have enough fuel to go the rest of this race?
Yeah, we think so. Everything's been close, but the yellows have definitely helped out. So Takuma's driven a great race and saving fuel under yellow, which is helping us out. And we can get the ABC car in victory lane, be good.
All right, let's talk about that restart, because there's a lot of questions. Obviously, you're going to say he did it right, but there's a moment when you have to look at that and question, did he jump the start to pass Montoya?
No, I heard our guy say green. So as long as the flagman's thrown the green, I can't see it where I'm standing. I've got someone else remotely watching it because I can't see it. So as soon as he drops that green, it looked like he pulled out right perfectly. So.
All right. Once again, Larry Foyt, the strategist for Sato. Jan?
And the side of the story for Graham Rahal, it's Rico Nault. He has been on the radio with Graham and with the crew. A lot of engineers here are doing calculations. You really didn't want it to go yellow because you were in pretty good position if it stayed green, correct?
Well, we just got to the point where we think we'd be all right. I mean, the yellow doesn't exactly hurt us, but this red flag, you know, the cars are sitting there, the tires are getting colder. I don't know, I think the Steak and Shake car has a good chance of making a few more positions, but I just prefer to stay green myself, yeah.
But you do have enough fuel to go for it.
Yeah, we're perfectly fine to make it to the end now.
All right, sounds like a good one, Doc.
And John Boslog calling the shots for Juan Pablo Montoya. You called the shots a week ago, and you got an Indy 500 win now. I know it's been gut-wrenching. How close is it for you guys on fuel?
Very close. We're close. He's doing all he can. You know, these yellows obviously are helping us, but we're just, you know, kind of missing it right now. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get back going and we get some more yellow, and it's not us.
So you do need some more yellow. You need a little more help to make it?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, John Boslog, obviously very short here from Montoya. That's why he was trying to save on the restart. He knows that they're still probably a lap to a lap and a half short.
Now, the other question that comes into play here, besides the restart and the fuel mileage and so on, is what the actual distance of the race ends up becoming. Remember that there becomes a time limit on these races, and officials, while they have red flagged the race to try and clean all that mess up and give the fans their best shot at seeing a green flag finish, a move that I applaud, by the way, they are in the process of determining what the rest of the remaining distance will be. There'll be 5 laps left to go in the race when they fire the car up and send them off the pit lane by the scheduled distance. But remember, the clock is ticking also. So we'll wait for a determination from IndyCar Race Control as to how many more laps we will see before the checkered flag waves.
I really hope they run it to the end on flags, because this is going to become, this is already an exciting race, and it's just going to get better.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's, 5 laps left to go or 3 laps left to go. As a driver, Eddie, you know what our position is. You put your foot on the gas and you move forward and drive the thing as hard as you can do. It's going to be like 3 qualifying laps is what these next few laps are going to be, whether it's 3 or whether it's 5.
So we have Bourdais that hasn't won a race this year, and he's trying to do everything he possibly can. Very aggressive driver. We have Sato that has very little patience when he's behind somebody. We have Rahal, who is trying to be the first person to win with a Honda. And we have the Indy 500 champion, who is 4th. You tell me if that's not an explosive group going into these last laps.
Teams are being informed over the IndyCar Race Control channel now the process of what's going to finish the race. So I am listening to that as I speak here, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. They're getting ready to get the field back out onto the racetrack, and also informing the teams that the incident between the 19 and 1 car is subject to post-race review.
Well, that incident took out last year's winner, both Will Power and Elio Castroneves, that won the duel here last year, one Saturday, one Sunday. So that one accident took out both of last year's winners and Roger Penske's driver for Roger Penske's event. So that's not very popular.
Okay, here's the determination. The teams have just been told when the cars are released from pit road, it becomes a timed race. There will be 5.5 minutes left before the checkered flag from when they roll the cars from the pit lane. So this has become a timed race, and I'm just sitting here looking at my notepad. We've had a caution every 3 laps.
Well, we're in that window.
Crash, clean up, restart, crash, clean up, restart, repeat. So what will we see in these last however many remaining laps? Hopefully not a repeat of that same pattern, Jan.
And when you look at the lineup and you see Takuma Sato just ahead of Graham Rahal, I believe this is somewhat unprecedented because we saw the blocking move that Graham Rahal put on Sato, and in the past that's always been a drive-through penalty. But Race Control has been working, saying that doesn't really fit. That punishment doesn't fit the crime necessarily. So they've been working through what can we do, and because there was a caution, they repositioned those cars. Not too many races ago, Graham Rahal would have been out of this. And I think that was a good call to reposition the cars. Graham Rahal still has a fighting chance. So good on Race Control for making some adjustments from how they've done it in the past.
I totally agree.
So the engines are being refired. And here's that incident that Jan was just referencing. Graham Rahal, 3rd car in line.
Saw him get sideways, not be able to put the power down, came out slower of the turn than usual, and went all the way across the road to slow Sato coming from passing it.
So the red flag withdrawn after 10 minutes and 18 seconds. Sebastian Bourdais leads the field back out onto the racetrack. Doc?
And we have checked with their pits and Jimmy Vasser and all the engineers and computers, and here's what they're telling Sebastian Bourdais. You're going to refire now, make one lap, and come around to the green flag with a few laps to go. Based on their computer calculations, the computers show that Sebastian Bourdais can make it to lap 69, just beyond lap 69, and he will be out of fuel. If they get a yellow, he'll be good. If they don't, he may be done.
So you see now the clock, top of the screen, and the time remaining in this race, and they will go green this time by.
If I was Bourdais, I'd be doing a very slow warm-up lap right now. Let that clock tick away.
You're afraid of the cold tires, or just let the time run?
Let the time run.
Okay.
Which he can't do because he has to keep up with the pace car. But cold tires are going to be an issue. Sato behind him is an issue. Sato is under pressure from Rahal. So this is going to be, and don't forget Montoya.
I believe I used the phrase last week at Indy, deep breath. Deep breath.
Very deep breath.
Bourdais, Sato, Rahal, Montoya. Then Tony Kanaan moving up to 5th after the willpower crash. Sebastian Bourdais, 4 straight championships in the kart era, 4 consecutive years. He's been close this season. They've been very solid. They've been like best in class behind the Penske and Ganassi teams. He's out in front today. He's got a chance to win. He's got Takuma Sato right behind him. They're coming to the green flag. How many more laps will we see? Will there be another crash? We all find out together.
Green, green, green.
Tony Kanaan and Simon Pagenaud ducked out of the pit lane at the restart.
What Bourdais needs is to have Rahal right on the gearbox of Sato. Rahal and Sato have not had a good weekend with each other this race. And the more pressure he can put on him, the better Bourdais will be. Sato almost loses it coming out of that corner.
He's wide just a little bit. Is that enough of a run for Sato to get there?
Don't forget, he's got to go on that semi-damp part of the track to get by, and Bourdais will not give him any room.
Around the Fountain Complex.
Chevy versus Honda. A direct fight for the win here in Detroit.
This is a point where you're driving as hard as you can. Your heart rate's right up there, and you are pushing each and every turn deep into the braking zones.
Right now, it's just about the first 3. Montoya's fallen back.
But remember, fuel is still a concern for all of these guys. They could still hiccup in the remaining laps. The white flag will wave next time. Race control calling out. White flag next time. 2 to go here in Detroit.
White flag next time by.
These 3 guys are not looking at their fuel. They're going for broke. If they run out of fuel, they run out of fuel.
Bourdais, Sato, Rahal. Then a gap back to Montoya.
This is the section of the track where Sato always gains on Bourdais. We'll see if he does it again. They're right on the limit. Bourdais is looking awfully strong.
Seems like once the tires got up to temperature there after a lap or so, his car certainly seems to work just a little bit better.
He's checking out.
Team that's owned by Jimmy Vasser, who we saw just a moment ago, and Kevin Kalkoven.
He's checking out. If he doesn't have a fuel problem, he has this in the back.
If. White flag, 1 lap to go. Rahal looking at Sato for second while Sebastian Bourdais leads. Does he have the fuel to finish? Montoya under some pressure from Vautier for the 4th spot, well behind these front 3. And Vautier gets by Montoya.
What a great drive by him.
There's Andretti by Montoya. Montoya struggling.
Is Montoya running out of fuel?
Bourdais has just left everybody behind. Right now, Sato's biggest problem is Rejo.
Half a lap to go. Hopping the curb is Bourdais.
Very few corners left. He has no reason to look in his mirrors. All he has to focus on is about what is ahead of him and just hope there's enough fuel in the car.
Checkered flag is waving. He'll have enough fuel to make it. The winner of Duel in Detroit, race number 2, Sebastian Bourdais.
Good job, buddy. Awesome. Woohoo! All right, bud. Great job, man. Awesome job, brother. Awesome job. Great job, bud. Way to go.
Wow. Wow.
Great job, guys. Great job. Wow.
Those last 2 laps were unbelievable. He won by a 1.7 second gap, Scott.
And you can hear the relief on his voice because it's a win that everybody's wondering whether anybody can beat Penske and Ganassi this year. But I would say, as you mentioned before, I think one of the most talented road course drivers here. And yes, Juan Pablo was running out of fuel.
Yeah. Had contact coming to the checkered flag as he raced with Gabby Chavez for the 9th spot. They made contact coming to the stripe as Montoya was running out of fuel. Chavez edged him for that position. So Montoya, after leading 35 of 68 laps, finishes in 10th as the championship leader.
Excuse me. Great result for Sato and Foyt also.
Well, Doc, the circumstances all worked out in their favor. And for Jimmy Vasser, his driver Sebastian Bourdais, a win today.
And he's pumping his fist. Jimmy, a big smile. You said it was close. How close was it? I mean, why you had to be worried?
Well, I think we could have done one more at the end there because the race got short in the 1 lap. But, all credit to these guys and the whole KVSH Mystic Hydroxy Cut team. And having the Chevrolet power here and winning in Detroit is extra special. And, he's a great champion. He's been there before, so we had the right guy in the seat.
Hey, go celebrate.
All right, thank you.
Alan?
33rd career win for Sebastian Bourdais. Led the last 18 laps and set his fastest lap of the race and the fastest lap of the race on the last lap. And as Bourdais makes his way back around, all I can think of from this entire weekend is what challenges these teams faced, and the track promoter and the fans and so on, the weather conditions, the changeable conditions and so on. What an exhausting weekend here in Detroit for all of these folks.
And preparing the cars from when you come from a place like Indy, which is totally different, and also for the drivers to change their mentality to race here. This is some of the most exciting racing I have seen.
To do donuts, boys. on the little note.
That's a little embarrassing to have it stall on the front stretch, but
if you're going to win,
yeah,
with a GM engine, there's nothing better than winning here in Detroit.
And you talk about different racetracks. I've always said that the IndyCar drivers are the most diverse drivers in the world because you go from Indianapolis 2.5 miles, 225, 30 miles an hour, and then you come here, as you can hear the fans now applauding, to this type of a street road course, and then off to Texas, a high bank track. So drivers and teams do a tremendous job.
How bad do you think you wanted that, Alan?
Well, we all sat down with Jimmy Vasser and then briefly with Sebastian yesterday, Friday it was, and they talked about how close they were, but yet how elusive the little missing piece was.
And the frustration from Sebastian Bourdais that he had not won yet because he knows how close he has been.
Now Juan Pablo Montoya walking back.
Not the way he thought the weekend was going to end. Great team, great driver. And they won here in Detroit with a Chevy. Teams put so much effort into racing, and when you're close like that, you can't get a win. It just builds up so much pressure in the team, and it's really great to see it released with a win like that today. Doc?
Let's go to Doc.
Sebastian Bourdais, hey, that's how close it was. You couldn't even make it back?
No, I did. I just had a too long first gear to do donuts today. Too much grip from the Firestone tires. Couldn't spin the rear wheels.
Hey, what does this mean to you? You guys have worked so hard to be able to get this team back where it needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a heck of a feeling. After yesterday's debacle, you know, we couldn't get it more wrong yesterday. And, you know, today just did everything wrong yesterday and did everything right today. The strategy, the pit stops, you know, the management of the fuel, the guys did awesome. And couldn't be any happier for the Mystic guys. And Droxy cut Circle K. Chevrolet at home, man.
How about that? A big win for Chevy here. Sebastian Bourdais goes back to victory lane for the first time in almost a year. Alan?
What a weekend in Detroit. What a finish. And Sebastian Bourdais, the winner of Duel in Detroit race number 2. ABC World News or your local news is next, except on the West Coast. Been quite a trip through the month of May. And we end in Detroit with Sebastian Bourdais celebrating his first win of the season, the 7th different winner in the last 8 races in IndyCar.